Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing the 27 Club book tag. This tag was created by Bookbound Weirdo and I was tagged by Books, Songs and Other Magic. Please stay tuned. Okay everyone, so yeah, check out those two awesome channels. And just a little bit of background on this tag. 27 Club is quite a sad club to belong to. It's become part of media sensation, and it's about musicians and even other artists. I've looked it up, it's not just musicians, but other artists that die tragically at the age of 27. And it just so happens that there's so many of them, and this could be through drugs, could be through alcohol, could be through suicide, and a number of other things. Now what's interesting about this tag, I really found that I had to think about this, and in some cases I had to actually look up some information as well, because I did not know all of the artists. And so for each prompt there's an artist that belongs to that infamous club, and then it asks you a question based on that artist. It gives you kind of a question related to a book, where you have to think about a book related to something about that artist. Okay, so let's get going. The first one is Robert Johnson. Now, this is somebody, unfortunately, I didn't know. I love my rock music, I love some blues and so on, but obviously I needed a bit of education, which I'm pleased that I got with this tag. And I looked up, and he was a big influencer in blues and rock, dating back to recordings he made in 1936 and 1937. So he was a massive influence on the blues and rock and that kind of genre. And the prompt says, a book or character that started it all off. And I have to go, and I've done this plenty of times, but sorry, but this is the first horror book that I read. This is the first book that started it all for me, and that is Stephen King, It. I read this when I was 15. I read it under the covers as a teenager when I should have been sleeping, and this book just blew me away. And it kind of was my gateway drug into the horror genre. Yeah, so that's Stephen King, It. Okay, prompt number 2, Janis Joplin. Now, yeah, I absolutely love Janis Joplin. Remember her watching her at Woodstock. Well, it wasn't exactly myself, but just the most incredible voice, and just so tragic that she basically left us at such a young age. And the question says, a book that celebrates the beauty of imperfection. Now, this is an interesting one, and it is my favorite novel of all time, and that is Swan Song by Robert McCammon. And unless you've actually read the novel, you won't really know what I'm saying here. A big part of this novel has to do about beauty and ugliness, and how beauty is inside us, or what is inside of us is what's important. And I can't really say too much more about that without giving away the novel or giving away spoilers. But to say that there's a lot more to this post-apocalyptic novel than meets the eye. And so yeah, that's my choice for this prompt, is Swan Song. Okay, prompt number 3 is Jimi Hendrix, and this is another real favorite, really one of my favorite musicians. There's some songs that just stay with me. Surprisingly, my favorite song by him, which might come as a bit of a surprise, is Little Wing. I don't know, something about that song is just so beautiful. I mean, I also love All Along the Watchtower, and so many others, Voodoo Child. All Along the Watchtower, also done by, what's his name, Bob Dylan. But that song Little Wing really touched me. It's just something about that, it's just beautiful. Anyway, the thing says, a book that never reads the same twice. And when you listen to Jimi Hendrix, it's always different with his guitar solos, and he's just absolute mesmerizing music. And this book for me, I've read it 2-3 times, I think 3 times. And every time I've got something different from it. And that is Clive Barker's Weird World. It's just a magical dark fantasy adventure, and yeah, lots of horror elements. I've given a review of this book already, and it's always full of surprises for me, and so that's why it's Weird World, Clive Barker. On the subject of Janis Joplin, and in fact Jimi Hendrix as well, I want to just give a little quiz here and see if anyone can answer this question. Both of these characters feature quite prominently in one of Stephen King's short stories, and it also has to do with other musicians as well. Let me know in the comments below if you know the answer to that question. Which short story by Stephen King features Janis Joplin as well as Jimi Hendrix? Let me know. Prompt number 4 is Jim Morrison. When I was younger, this was my favorite. I had my Jim Morrison t-shirt. I was absolutely infatuated with his music, his lyrics. I would lie there listening to Riders on the Storm at night, and it's just absolutely beautiful music. And one thing about Jim Morrison is he was infatuated with the whole thing about death. He was kind of obsessed with it, and in a way he searched for it, and his lyrics showed that, about the whole idea about death and rebirth. So this particular question, a book that explores the themes of death and rebirth. And I'm sorry, I couldn't really think of anything more prominent than Anne Rice, The Vampire Chronicles, in particular Interview with a Vampire. It's kind of philosophical. This book is actually quite powerful in terms of the way that it looks at death and the vampires who are highly intelligent and look at what's happened to them and reflecting on their previous lives and trying to leave behind their previous lives and having to get on with the idea of immortality. It's actually quite a philosophical book in many ways. Yeah, and I absolutely loved it for that. It's also very bloody. It's not sparkling vampires, although some people will argue that it is a little sparkly. I would suggest that that's not the case. There's a hell of a lot of layers to this particular novels, and yeah, I highly recommend that you pick it up. That's Interview with a Vampire. Okay, now for another little quiz question. Let's see how well you guys know your movies. The famous horror movie which features Jim Morrison, and it's an 80s horror movie. He's not in it himself, but there's an image, and there's a very kind of standout image, picture, whatever, of Jim Morrison in this particular movie. And it's an 80s movie, and yeah, it's a wonderful cult classic. Let me know what you think in the spaces down below. That's Jim Morrison. Prompt number 5 is Amy Winehouse. Now, I have to be honest, I was never a huge fan of Amy Winehouse. Yes, she had an incredible voice, raspy, and it says a book or character that deserves a huge apology from everyone. From what I know, that she was treated terribly by the media in the midst of her alcohol abuse, of her drug abuse, and yeah, she was treated awfully. I think a little bit probably very similar to Janis Joplin. But yeah, the particular book that I'm thinking of right now is not a novel, it's a short story, and it's taken from the Books of Blood, and it's called The Forbidden by Clive Barker. And this was turned into a movie, The Candyman, and now this particular villain, Candyman, or his character in The Forbidden, has a serious backstory, and we learn that he was a slave, and that he fell in love with a white woman, and he was basically caught by this mob, and they lynched him. They cut off his hands, and they covered him with bees. And yeah, it's almost like you feel sympathy for him, even though he's a killer. You feel for him as a character and for what he went through, and this kind of vengeance is almost like it's something that people deserved. You know, well, not deserved, but you can see where he's coming from, and it's almost like people owe him an apology for what they did to him as a young man and turned him into what he is, and that's a killer. So that is The Forbidden by Clive Barker. Prompt number 6 is Brian Jones, who was part of the Rolling Stones, and he supposedly drowned when he was in the pool with friends, but there's drugs and alcohol involved. But it's a whole conspiracy theory, like what actually happened. And even today people don't know exactly what happened. So there's a whole conspiracy around the event. So the prompt says, a book that is surrounded by conspiracy theories. Now one book that I was going to mention, I don't want to talk about Stephen King too much every single tag that I do. I was thinking about 11/22/63, about the JFK. But instead I'm going to go with Rosemary's Baby, Ira Levine, who I'm going to be reading this month. And it is not so much a political conspiracy as more like a kind of domestic family conspiracy with Satanists, and there's a lot of paranoia, and so yeah, I think it fits the bill. The whole idea of good versus evil, and she doesn't know who she is, and she doesn't know where to turn, and she thinks everything is conspiring against her. Hope I'm not giving too much away there, but yeah, that's Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levine. Prompt number 7 is another name that I did not know, I had to look up, and that is Alan Wilson. And he was an American blues rock musician and the lead singer of a band called Canned Heat. Now I have heard of Canned Heat and I've listened to Canned Heat, but I didn't know the individual musicians within the band. Now this particular prompt says, a book that contributed to the popularization of its genre. Now also I had to think long and hard about this. A lot of these were I really had to think about them. And I came up with a book that on first read I didn't particularly enjoy, but after reading another book of hers, I'm definitely going to give The Haunting of Hill House another try by Shirley Jackson. Now this most definitely popularized the haunted house genre or subgenre in horror. This is what everyone talks about, The Haunting of Hill House. I absolutely loved We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I did a review on that book. But yeah, I think I'm going to pick this up again. I might get more from it the second time. That's Haunting of Hill House. Prompt number 8, another name I did not know, Peter Ham. A book that challenges the notion of loyalty. And Peter Ham, I found out, was a member of a band called Badfinger. Another band that I recognize the name, just don't know the musicians. And yeah, sadly he committed suicide. Now this is not a horror per se, but I still think it's incredibly brutal in many ways. In fact, I'm actually choosing 2 books by this author. One that's more well known and that I own, and that is Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy, where the whole idea is that the challenge, the notions of loyalty, is that there are family secrets, and to be loyal to the family, the deep dark secrets that this family holds. And it's quite a tragic story. The second one that I'm going to talk about, The Lords of Discipline. Now this was a brutal tale, and it is also about Pat Conroy, and it's a story about these cadets that are enrolled in this very strict, very proud military institution where they undergo serious hazing and all sorts of stuff. And so yeah, they are tested, their whole idea of loyalty, why they're there, what are they doing, it gets tested and brought to the fore. So yeah, Pat Conroy, The Prince of Tides, and The Lords of Discipline by the same author. Prompt number 9, another favourite, Kurt Cobain. Such a tragic death, such a talented guy. And basically, I used to love his music, but I think it was a record or album, maybe you can help me here baby, it's an acoustic thing where they did this show, remember, where he just sits there and jams. Unplugged, yeah. Nirvana Unplugged, one of my favourite ever. And he's sitting there and he's singing A Man Who Sold the World, also done by David Bowie. I just love this man. I think it's just so sad the way he went. But anyway, this thing says, a book that could pass for a humble old sweater, but is a legend. And for me, I'm going to go with, it's not an unknown author, but relatively unknown, and that's Mark Morris Toady. And I've done a review of this early in the year as well. This is a hugely underrated author, and this book is absolutely exceptional. I know somebody rated it even higher than Stephen King. I wouldn't quite go there, but I'd say it's very much with it vibes, and it is just absolutely 5-star favourite for me, and that is Toady. So if you never picked up Mark Morris, do a good job actually picking up this. I think this is his debut novel, Toady. So yeah, this is what would you call it? Could pass for a humble old sweater, but is a legend. Awesome book. Don't overlook it. Okay, prompt number 10 is tagging people. And first I just want to thank Book, Songs and Other Magic for tagging me. I actually really enjoyed this. I gave some thought to the prompts. I found them very, very interesting. And well done for, what's it? Bookbound Weirdo, for creating an awesome tag. So I'm going to tag more people than I usually do. And I'd encourage you to do this tag. So I tag Book Blather, Chantal Reads All Day, Cat's Novel Adventures, Another Bibliophile Reads, Bad is Rad, and Bookstalgic. And anyone else that wants to do this tag, go for it. It's really awesome and thought-provoking and wonderful. Okay everyone, that's my tag for today. One thing I forgot to say a little bit earlier is that I am a little bit behind in my tags. I've got a little bit of a backlog, so what I'm going to be doing is maybe either doubling up sometimes or trying to fit in a few extra days for videos where I can do these tags, so I can catch up nicely. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of my choices? Do you enjoy any of those bands or musicians? And yeah, take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.